You've probably heard that you should be practicing scales, starting with C major. Not only does it help you to learn the notes on the fretboard, but it also helps you to develop finger independence. If you've been practicing your C scale and you're comfortable with the notes, then you're going to love learning this melody. It's a beautiful original arrangement using only the notes in our C major scale. So let's get started with a demo so you can hear this melody, and then we'll move into our tutorial and walk through the tabs step by step. If you're enjoying this arrangement, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, then welcome. I'm Lara. I'm a musician, a composer, and a ukulele teacher. I hope you have fun exploring my arrangements and song tutorials. This arrangement is for low G tuning, and the tabs will be on screen during this lesson. You can also download the tabs from my Patreon page, along with my book of tabs and my songbook covering all of the tutorials that I've shared. You'll find a link down below in the description to download the tabs. Now let's get started with our tutorial so you can learn how to play this arrangement. Beginning with measure 1, we're going to start by picking the open second and third strings together. Now throughout this melody, there are many times that we pick 2 strings at once. And I tend to use my index and middle fingers. I use these fingers for picking strings 3 and 4, 2 and 3, and 1 and 2. If you prefer, you can also use your middle and ring fingers for picking 2 strings at once. You can experiment picking with different finger combinations and see what feels best to you. So we'll start by picking strings 2 and 3. Then we're going to pick these strings again and hammer on to the first fret of the second string using our index finger. Then we'll place our ring finger down on the third fret of the second string to pick strings 2 and 3. Then we'll place our pinky on the third fret of the first string to pick strings 1 and 2. And then we'll go back to strings 2 and 3. Now, if you're not yet comfortable with hammer-ons, then instead of doing our hammer-on here, you can simply pick the second note. In measure 2, we'll play our open second and third strings and hammer on to the first fret of the second string. Then we'll place our ring finger down on the third fret of the second string and play strings 2 and 3 twice. So playing measures 1 and 2 at a slow tempo looks like this. Measure 3 is played the same way as measure 1, and measure 4 is the same as measure 2 until we get to our last chord. So at the end of measure 2, we played strings 2 and 3 together. But at the end of measure 4, we're going to play strings 3 and 4 together, placing our middle finger on the second fret of the third string. Measure 5 is also played the same way as measures 1 and 3. Measure 6 starts off the same way as measure 2, and then we'll lift up our ring finger, keeping our index finger in place, to pick strings 1 and 2 together. Here's here's how measure 7 looks at a slow tempo. We're starting off by picking strings 1 and 2 together with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. When we pick strings 1 and 2, we're going to hammer onto the 3rd fret of the 1st string using our ring finger. Then we'll pick strings 1 and 2 together, then strings 2 and 3 together, both open strings. Then we'll place our index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. We'll pick strings 2 and 3 and hammer onto the 3rd fret of the 2nd string with our ring finger. Then we'll pick strings 2 and 3 again, and then we'll finish measure 7 by picking the open 3rd string. In measure 8, we'll use our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string to pick strings 3, the open 2nd string, back to the 3rd string, and then we'll finish measure 8 by picking strings 3 and 4 together, both open strings. Now we've reached the end of measure 8 and we have repeat bars, so we'll go back to measure 1 and repeat measures 1 through 8. If you're feeling generous and you'd like to support my channel, then see the video description for an easy way to buy me a coffee. Now moving into measure 9. This measure starts off the same way as measure 7, with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, picking strings 1 and 2 and hammering onto the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Then we'll pick strings 1 and 2 once more, then the open 2nd and 3rd strings, and then placing our index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, we'll place strings 2 and 3 together. Measure 10 is played the same way as measure 9 until we get to our final chord. So instead of playing strings 2 and 3, we're going to play strings 3 and 4 with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So here's how it looks to play measure 10. In measure 11, we're going to pick the open 2nd string, followed by 2 hammer-ons, using our index finger to hammer onto the 1st fret, and then our ring finger to hammer onto the 3rd fret. If you're not comfortable with this hammer-on, then you can pick each note. Then we'll pick the open 3rd string, and then we'll go up to the 3rd fret of the 1st string, then the 2nd fret, then the open 1st string, and we'll end this measure with the open 3rd string. In measure 12, we start with the same set of hammer-ons on the 2nd string. Then we pick the open 2nd string, and then strings 3 and 4 together with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So here's a look at measures 11 and 12, using these sets of hammer-ons at a slow tempo. Measures 13 and 14 are played the same way as measures 9 and 10. Measure 15 starts off the same way as measure 11 with our set of hammer-ons. Now I'm going to lift up my ring finger, placing down my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, and I still have my index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. So I'll pick strings 1 and 2 together and hammer onto the 3rd fret of the 1st string using my ring finger. Then I'll lift my ring finger up to play strings 1 and 2, and then I'll lift up my middle finger to play strings 1 and 2 again. And now moving into our final measure 16 as we're slowing down the tempo. We'll pick the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, then the open 3rd string, open 2nd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and then we'll end this melody by picking the open 3rd and 4th strings together. I hope you've enjoyed learning this beautiful melody using only the notes in our C major scale. Have fun practicing, and thanks for watching.